Hey guys, Randy here, and welcome to another episode of REK Thoughts. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that's probably going to get my video flagged in some fashion or another. You'll see those little community notes that pop up from time to time on certain videos. And the reason why is because it's a very contentious subject. It's a subject that people tend to either laugh about or get very heavy conspiratorially into. And I'm going to stay out of the conspiracy side of it as best I can. But that subject is weather modification. A lot of people call it weather manipulation, but the actual official name, yes, official name. We'll get to that in a minute. The official name is weather manipulation. I think the reason why people laugh at this subject is because we're at a point in time now where we've had a lot of fiction, both in movies, books, and other media that's existed for, decades now. Ideas like this and others, there are other subjects like, magic and a lot of other crazy stuff that you can get into that's been put into our fiction.
A tornado somehow escaped the weather modification net and touched down in only one spot. Amanda's home.
Well, you can never predict the weather.
Consuming media that way has conditioned us, whether intentionally or not. You can have that argument if you like to. We've been conditioned to believe that these things only exist in fiction. The problem is, when you go so long that way, it conditions you to not be able to see the truth. Especially in today's world where you have so much crazy lies and conspiracies and what's real with that, what's not online. There's a lot of that, and so it's understandable. But it is the reason why I am talking about it, because it frustrates me to no end that when you know something's real, it's been real for decades, like this particular subject. It frustrates you when you encounter somebody and they look at you like you got, three heads. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to bring the receipts on this particular subject. And I'm going to stick within the realm of fact as best I can and try to stay away from the conspiracy side of things, so that we can kind of just keep things real and kind of keep it within the realm of what I actually know. Because I don't know a lot. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how these things work. I just know this kind of aspect of it. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard of an entity called NOAA. It is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This is an actual government entity. And if you see up here, I pulled up this website, you can actually see the official .gov web address. Okay. So that's important. We're going to stay there. Now this site, what it's designed to do, as you can see down here, you got weather modification project reports. That's important because you have an official government entity. You have a website that is on this subject. What this is a website that is listing the criteria of what qualifies as falling under the category of weather modification. And then it also goes down and it gives you a place to report should you intend, as a company of some kind or entity, to engage in the practice of weather modification. Now, let's just do this first paragraph right here. What is weather modification? Any activity performed with the intention of producing artificial changes in the composition, behavior, or dynamics of the atmosphere. So that's pretty simple, but obviously you again have an official government designated definition on weather modification. We don't have something here saying it's not real. It's real. So let's go down here, and I'm going to focus on primarily this section of the website. And what this is the criteria that I mentioned a little bit ago. So we're going to read through these things, and some of them are going to be pretty obvious. Some are going to be like, okay, that seems out there, but we're just going to go through them. Obviously, if they've listed them here, in my mind, it tells me that A, either it's been done, or it is B, something that has been tried through experimentation, or maybe it's even theory. I don't know. I know I've seen some of these things talked about in the conspiracy realm on kind of a greater realm, but we're just going to stick to this criteria, these 9 things they've got listed out here, okay? So number 1, seeding or dispersing of any substance into clouds or fog to alter drop size, distribution, to produce ice crystals or coagulation of droplets, alter the development of hail or lightning, or influence in any way the natural development cycle of clouds or their environments. Now, this first one is kind of the most common thing that you hear when it comes to regarding weather manipulation modification, is cloud seeding. You heard about this with Dubai. There's been a lot of videos about it, not just that area, but just in cloud seeding in general. For decades, you can go on YouTube and search cloud seeding and get official scientific, kind of a little docu-series on this subject. So it's very much so real, but it's also the most common. But then we're going to get down into other things. Some things, again, a little more obvious, may seem kind of straightforward and mundane. Then we're going to get some kind of crazy ones. All right. So number 2, using fires or heat sources to influence convective circulation or to evaporate fog. Now, I don't actually know how that works or what that entails, but it sounds pretty like a kind of a non-crazy thing to try or do. So I would imagine it's been done. Number 3, modifying the solar radiation exchange of Earth or clouds through the release of gases, dust, liquids, or aerosols into the atmosphere. I think I've heard about somebody doing that. Bill Gates? Yeah, that might be the one. I can't remember. We'll see. Number 4, modifying the characteristics of land or water, surfaces, or dusting or treating with powders, liquid sprays, dyes, or other materials. Again, this seems to be like a land-based version of what they were talking about in number 3, but it seems reasonable. Like, I mean, it sounds like it's talking about chemicals and things like that. Number 5, releasing electricity, charged or radioactive particles or ions into the atmosphere. All right, full stop. Tell me that doesn't sound like science fiction. Tell me that doesn't sound like something right out of Star Trek. I mean, wow. And it's funny because this one kind of came up recently. There was a conspiracy theory around Hurricane Helene. Is it Helene? I think it's Helene and Milton. And I remember seeing something to this effect of sonic energy or electricity of some kind being pushed into these things to manipulate them in some way. I don't know if that's true. I'm not going to really go there because that's not something I really have gone down that path. But it seems like that's kind of in that realm. Wow. Okay, so number 7, using aircraft, propeller downwash, jet wash, or other sources of artificial wind generation. Sounds like a wind machine. That's pretty straightforward. Using, okay, this one's another, this one's another like sci-fi thing. Using lasers, what? Or other sources of electromagnetic radiation, or, you go into number 9, other activities undertaken with the intent to modify the weather or climate, including solar radiation, management activities, and experiments. Okay, so, wow. I don't know a lot of the science to the majority of all this stuff here. I really don't. I'm not in that realm. But because I'm not that person, that's why I'm going to stick with just this basic idea that it's frustrating that it is laughable. Here you have it again, an actual government website that lists these things out, shows what the criteria is. And so why, if this is real and you can pull this up, anybody can pull this up, why is it still laughable? It shouldn't be. I'm going to go down to one more thing here just to kind of finish off this part of this about this website. They have a couple of reporting apparatuses, and I don't know how they work, but I did pull them up. You have an initial report on weather modification activities, and then an interim activity reports and final reports. So I'm guessing this first report here must be what you're planning on doing. I guess that's the way that I understand it. And then and it's only a 3-page deal, but you actually only filled out the first page. And then the second one, only 1-page report. This appears to be more like as best I can tell, like a log sheet. So I'm guessing it's like a log sheet of your actual activity if you are engaging in weather modification. Okay, so what does all this mean? Well, it means it's real. It means that we have a science and there's more than one entity engaging in these activities. Now the question becomes, how much capability do we actually have? How far do we push it? Is there, a non-nefarious intent? Is there a nefarious intent? Is there something in between? I don't know. I have my suspicions. I'm not going to say at this point because I just want to stay focused on the idea that this is something that's real. One last thing that I do want to touch on before I end this video. I did mention the episode that happened in Dubai. So for those of you who are not familiar with what happened in Dubai in April of 24, just a few months ago here at the recording of this video, they had this massive flooding. And the initial reports were claiming that it was a result of cloud seeding. Okay, so I'm going to bring up this AP article that happened around Dubai at the time. And the reason why I'm using the AP is because they are a credible news source. Say what you will about mainstream media. I certainly have my feelings. But I'm using them because obviously it's considered a common place to go to get your news and talk about these things. So they reported at the time. Obviously, you can see their headline here. Here's why experts don't think cloud seeding played a role in Dubai's downpour. Okay. I'm not going to say whether it did or didn't. I don't know. Definitely a conspiracy theory around that, sure. But let's just kind of stay focused on the acknowledgement of its existence. And I'm going to use this article to do it. Again, we've already done that with the government website, but I'm going to drive it home with a news source acknowledging that cloud seeding is real while trying to drive you away from that fact and it's still kind of laugh at it. See, that's the frustrating part, is like the news organizations still laugh at you for bringing it up, yet they're reporting on it as something real. And I'll show you. It even says, and here's how I'm going to say that they actually acknowledge that weather manipulation, weather modification, is a real thing. Read here. With cloud seeding, it may rain, but it doesn't really pour or flood. At least nothing like what drenched the United Arab Emirates. Is that how you say it? Emirates. I am terrible with that kind of stuff. And paralyzed Dubai, meteorologists said. Cloud seeding, although decades old, is still controversial in the weather community, mostly because it has been hard to prove that it does very much. No one reports that the type of flooding that on Tuesday doused the UAE, which often deploys the technology in an attempt to squeeze every drop of moisture from the sky, that usually gives less than 4 to 5 inches of rain a year. Now, this is very important. They acknowledged it right here, which often deploys the technology. The AP acknowledges with this statement that Dubai, the powers that be in Dubai, deploy this technology regularly. So Dubai is is engaging in weather manipulation on the regular. So it's real. Again, this proves the acknowledgement of it being real. All right. It's most certainly not cloud seeding, said private meteorologist Ryan, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name. I have no idea. Former chief scientist of the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Sound familiar? That's NOAA. We just got done talking about NOAA. You can't create rain out of thin air per se and get 6 inches of water. That's akin to perpetual motion technology. See what he did there? This is where you have somebody who wants to kind of give a little jab, right? That is a person who is, he's bringing up an unrelated subject. And those of you that know perpetual motion technology, he's trying to say that it's completely make-believe. It's impossible, whatever. So he's, in his own way, poking the bear with that. And that's frustrating. It plays into the bend that, like, a news organization has when it comes to making fun of the public or people who say that these things are real. Okay? What did I yada 6 days. Yeah, meteorologists and climate scientists said the extreme rainfall is akin to what the world experts with human-caused climate change. There you go. Blaming it on people again. See, you got to bring it back to people. And one way to know for certain that it was not caused by tinkering with clouds is that it was forecast days in advance. Atmospheric science researcher Tom Tomerborg pointed to computer models that 6 days earlier forecast several inches of rain, the typical amount for an entire year in the UAE. I don't know about the whole forecasting thing when it comes to how does that debunk that it was because of cloud seeding. I don't get that. It's like, isn't that kind of like a mental disconnect? I don't know. Because if you're cloud seeding, you may be trying to have that outcome. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to dive too deep into that part of it. The point being is that it is a real thing. And the laugh factor of it, the ridiculous factor of it, granted, some of it's earned because you have some conspiracy theories that do get pretty outlandish, very science fiction-ish. One of the ones that came up, I think the mental gymnastics that people do, like it was brought up recently with Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene. That's how you say it, right? Helene? I think that's right. That they were steering these, they were controlling the path of these hurricanes. I don't know if that's true. There are some theories about how you could do that, but the problem is the image that people get is that you're actually taking this hurricane like a steering wheel and you're steering it where you want. If they could do that, I don't think it works that way. But that being said, I think that's why you get the kind of more extreme out there view of it. But the problem that I have is a very basic, If someone says that they can manipulate the weather and you laugh at them, okay, hear me out. If you laugh at somebody for saying simply that they can manipulate the weather, why don't you go apply to CNN, because you might be the a-hole in this story. Anyway, that's all I got. So until next time, good out there, getting some sunlight, enjoy life, and be good to people.